Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Women Today. Faster my good afternoon. It is Tuesday. It's just gone 6 minutes past 2, and this is Women Today on Manx Radio with me, Beth Espy.
And me, Christy DeHaven.
And this afternoon, it's a Conister Rock special to mark both American Independence Day, and it is also Tynwald Day tomorrow, of course, July the 5th. So who better to be here with us this afternoon than a proud Manxman, a local boy who done good. He needs no introduction, really.
The Late Show.
Bernie Quayle, Manx Radio.
Hi, it's The Late Show with Bernie for a Monday evening, and what a Monday. Our National Day, July 5th. Magnificent. St. John's was packed. And here we are. We're going to start a new series of Bernie's Bedtime Blankets tonight, and it'll have a bit of a national theme. The love of his life, Baby Pink. Boy, I'm delighted with the emails I'm getting here now this evening. Now for Terry Sloan. She says it's 96 degrees in Ashtabula, Ohio. My grandpa Roy is thinking of jumping into the grill to get out of the heat.
If you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain, if you're not into yoga.
Escape with Rupert Holmes. I worked with the guy, really nice guy, Mike Moran at WCWA in Toledo, Ohio, who actually took the words from that and put them in the local newspaper, the Toledo Blade, as a classified advert. And he was absolutely staggered by the number of replies he got. They didn't know that they were writing to a disc jockey on a radio station at the time, but he got a... This is the Nation Station, broadcasting from Douglas in the Isle of Man.
Bernie Quayle will be sharing his memories with us over the course of the next hour with the help of some pieces of music that really means something to him. And as ever with these programmes, we'd really love to hear from you as well this afternoon. Very easy to get in touch. You can text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. But Bernie, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. And I described you as a proud Manxman. You grew up here in Douglas.
Yes.
Tell us what you remember about your childhood, first of all, Bernie.
I had a wonderful childhood. Fantastic, loving parents, an older brother and a younger sister, and lived in a great neighbourhood with lots of kids to play with. In those days, there was so little traffic. You could play in the street all day long, not worried about the traffic. And I had a very good childhood. In fact, I spent about almost a year, aged about 10, in Newry, County Down, which was my mum's hometown. She was from Newry, and I went to a school there that really stood me in great stead when I went to Ballacameen. It was a Christian Brothers school, and boy, they were tough, those guys, I'll tell you.
And you spent a lot of time in Newry because your parents ran a guest house.
Yes, yeah. So during holiday periods, they shipped me off to a grandma. Her last name is Ma. And so when I said, Granny Ma, you mean Grandma? Well, yes, just to play on words. And I would spend very happy holidays with my grandma.
Were you a mischievous little boy, Bernie?
Yeah. I don't think so, but others did.
So you talked about that year in schooling when you were in Newry, sort of standing in very good stead for when you went to Ballacameen. So what sort of pupil were you?
I wasn't too bright. I was one of the few that made it into what they called the academic grades when we went to Ballacameen, A, B and C. Those automatically went on to take GSC, or it's GCSE now. But yeah, I did okay.
And did you have any idea when you were little of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
No, it was in the last couple of years in school that my Auntie May had a hotel on the promenade, and a guy that was staying with her was an assistant manager in Woolworths, and I got along famously with him, and I said, I'd love to be, what you are. And he said, they have training programs. And so he was the inspiration for me. As soon as I could leave school, I did, and I joined the Woolworths, the trainee manager program, and I was with them for just over 4 years.
And you spent that time as a commercial traveller, and you spent quite a bit of time in Manchester.
Yeah, with Woolworths I was transferred from Douglas to Belfast, then to Liverpool, and I ran the confectionery department in the front of the store in Liverpool, Church Street. And reps used to come in all the time and often would take me out to lunch. And one of them is a wonderful name, Fred Diggle, who I said, I envy you guys. You take clients to lunch, you've got a car, an expense account, and you're your own boss. He said, well, they're looking for a rep for the Manchester area. Why don't you apply? And he gave the area sales manager my name and made an appointment, and I got the job.
So that got you off island, but then you actually ended up spending some time in Manchester living with a bunch of Manxies again, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. There were 5 of us, all Manx lads living in the same house. It was bedlam, it really was. Because one of them worked in a casino in Manchester, and so he was there. It was 24 hours a day on the go.
Wow, it must have been an incredible time to be
yeah.
young. You know, what a revolution that was going
Yeah.
on in the 1950s and 60s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the groups that are now household names were just starting off, and we got to see them in little clubs in Manchester and Liverpool. It was a great time, it really was.
Well, these Conister Rock programmes, Bernie, are also about hearing your memories, but also about hearing some of your favourite pieces of music as well. So tell us about the first track that you've chosen.
This is one from childhood days that I remember singing over and over, and in particular because I fancied a girl whose last name was Lee, and her father was the manager of a store in Douglas. He was an Englishman, and I used to sing this song to her, and she hated it. Hey, round the corner, ooh, ooh, looking for Henry Lee. Anyway, that's the first song I've chosen.
Around the corner, beneath the berry tree, along the footpath behind the bush, looking for Henry Lee. Around the corner, beneath the berry tree, along the footpath behind the bush, looking for Henry Lee. Tonight all the stars are shining bright. Tonight all the cornfields are a sight. I have reached the meeting spot, but my Henry Lee has not. And I wonder, can it be that he forgot? Around the corner, beneath the berry tree, along the footpath behind the bush, looking for Henry Lee. Tonight as the moon begins to shine, tonight Henry Lee said he'd be mine. I would like to know my fate, but my Henry Lee is late, and I wonder, can it be he changed his mind? Around the corner, beneath the berry tree, along the footpath behind the bush, looking for Henry Lee. I told Henry Lee to go away, but now I am sad he didn't stay. And tomorrow night if he comes a-looking round for me, I'll be sitting beneath the bitter berry tree. Around the corner, beneath the berry tree, along the footpath behind the bush, looking for Henry Lee. Looking for Henry Lee.
The Weavers, Around the Corner, a song that Bernie Quayle used to unsuccessfully sing to try and woo a girl that he was interested in. I can't imagine why that didn't work, Bernie.
Oh, I love that song, though.
We were just talking about your time in Manchester where you lived with a group of Manxies, some fairly well-known names, I'm sure, to many people here on the island. Who were they?
Well, one, unfortunately, was shot down in an aircraft. He had moved to Africa, and a missile, thinking the plane carried Idi Amin, His name was Michael Harrogate. Lost his life in that aircraft. Anyway, there was Michael Harrogate, there was Donald Kenyock, Jasper Kane, Ian Brown. There's quite a bunch of us.
There really were.
Some wild times.
Probably shouldn't ask you about any more of those at the moment, Bernie. But anyway, you are listening to Women Today. It's a Conister Rock special this afternoon to mark American independence and Tynwald Day. And we'll be talking about your American adventures a little bit later, Bernie. But being a Manxman, how important is Tynwald Day for you?
Very important. In fact, it got me into trouble in America because the 4th of July is a big day in America, as you probably know. And I kept going on about the oldest parliament in the world, continuous parliament in the world, on American Independence Day. And I was then, the program director came in and said, "You better shut up about this, we're getting complaints."
Well, people getting in touch this afternoon, no complaints from listeners who are delighted to hear you back on the radio, Bernie. Karen says, such a pleasure to hear Bernie and his wonderful stories. Misses shows a great deal. We have some good news, actually, coming at the end of the programme, so stay tuned.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Women Today.
For music,
Manx Radio.
for information,
Manx Radio. The station that's all heart.
And as all our regular listeners will know by now, on a Friday morning just after 9, it's happy anniversary. Well, this is the time of the day we pass on greetings to couples who may be celebrating their wedding anniversaries around this time. And each week, one of the lucky couples receive a beautiful bouquet of flowers with the kind compliments of Mr. Sidney McGee. I'll tell you more about that in a few moments' time. First of all, this Friday morning we're saying hello and congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. W. Crebban of Bank House, the parade in Castletown.
We are talking to Bernie Quayle this afternoon on the Conister Rock as part of our special programme to mark American independence and also Tynwald Day in 1 week. We have a listener who has emailed to say, listening in from Pittsburgh just because of Bernie.
Had a message as well from Andy who says, listening to Bernie, sounding good to me. I know he's in America as well, so there you go.
There you go. And that's the thing, Bernie. I know when you were on The Late Show, you were forever getting these people from all over the world
That's
texting.
right,
You had such a
yes.
huge following. Tell us then where your radio career started. Where did it all begin?
Well, I'd had a hobby making movies, and at the time I was working for the casino as a croupier, and I was lucky enough to be on the ship. They had a couple of tables on the good ship Andes, did a complete trip all the way around Africa, and I made loads and loads of movies in the various ports we stopped off in. And when I'd edited the film together, I knew the sort of music I wanted to back it. And I telephoned Peter Neal, who was working for Manx Radio, and knew Peter from childhood days. And he said, sure, come on down and have a browse through the library. And as I was browsing in the library, I suppose you'd call him program director, was Bernie Quayle. Introduced himself, what am I doing here, who am I, and so on. I told him. He said, why didn't you apply for the job? What job? We've been advertising for a trainee presenter, and your voice seems very suited. So he brought me into the studio, did an audition tape, and I got the job the next day.
And, you know, he's absolutely right. I mean, your voice is iconic, really, isn't it? And I just wonder what it was about radio that just made you think, this is where I fit.
I just felt very comfortable. My father and mother, the radio was a major part of growing up in the 40s and 50s. And I just loved radio. I was born to be in radio, I think.
Do you think it helped that you were from a very musical family as well, really? Cause
Yes, yeah.
Wasn't your father and his brothers were all sort of very musical, weren't they?
Yes, there were father and 3 brothers formed a little jazz band. And my brother, Terry, or Teddy, as we always knew him, he too is in a jazz band. He plays primarily trombone, but he played all kinds of instruments. My sister is also very talented musically. I'm the only one that's not. The only thing I can play is records.
Well, your career started here then at Manx Radio, but it took you further afield. Let's just have a listen to this.
Greetings, fellow rap show listeners. This is Bernie Quayle, rapping about my radio program from 10 to 1 daily at WOHO.
Oh, it's so nice to be with you.
Exactly. Now, why would it be nice for you to be with me? Well, firstly... Oh, what else can I say? I suppose being British might give me a weird sense of humour.
I should laugh, but I cry.
So before I really come apart, won't you join me, Bernie Quayle, weekdays from 10 till 1 at someplace special, WOHO.
WOHO. So how did your American adventures all get started?
I'm trying to remember now. Instrumental in this was a chap that worked for Manx Radio at the time, Daffy Don Allen. I don't know if any of you here remembered the name, but he came off one of the pirate ships, and he said, at the time in 66, 67, there was talk that Manx Radio was going to become a national commercial radio station, like a daytime Radio Luxembourg. But it wasn't to be. Willie Whitelaw, who was the minister in charge of the post office, that's the organisation that doled out licenses, already had plans for radios 1 and 2. And so he basically was geeing Manx Radio along. And Don Allen said, look, if that's the case, all the ex-pirates are going to be knocking on our door. And if I were you, I'd take myself off to Canada. He gave me the address of the station he'd started at and get some real commercial radio experience. I said, well, I've got a sister in Tennessee. Even better if you can go there. And so I went on a vacation and thinking in 2 or 3 weeks I'd learn all I needed to learn. And Pauline had made appointments for me at stations. And they said, oh man, you've got to come and work for us. Because in the 60s, anything British, you couldn't go wrong. And so one of the stations made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Came back and I handed my notice into Manx Radio, only to find that visas were not as easily to come by. I didn't get my visa and work permit for 6 months. And fortunately, I had an uncle who'd worked closely with the FBI when the FBI was over the casino case when they first started. That was run by Americans. And I was given this contact number, called him and told him of my plight. And I said, I just hope the radio station keeps the offer open for me. And he called me back the next day and he says, can you be here on Friday? I said, well, it's an expensive trip just to go to London for a chat and back again. He said, no, you're off to America the next day. So that's how I got my visa. That was the back end of 68.
And the American station sort of took advantage of that waiting time, didn't they? Because they created a character for you, didn't they?
Yes, yeah. The first I knew of this, I was told that BOAC, who was still operating then, had my tickets. They had a store in Regent Street to go there, collect my airline tickets. And I walked in and said, my name is Bernard Quayle and you have tickets for me. Oh, we've got Sir Bernard Quayle. I said, oh, that's not me. And they went off and did some investigating. They said, it is you. And that was the first I knew that the station in Tennessee had made me a knight of the turntable. Sir Bernard, as they pronounced it.
And it led to you when you actually landed in America. You had quite the reception, didn't you? There are some photos actually of this on our Facebook, but just describe it to people.
Well, I travelled from Heathrow to Atlanta, changed aircraft, and from Atlanta into Knoxville, I was sat next to a GI and a wonderful guy, the 2 seats next to the window. When we pulled up, they ran the ladders up to the side of the aircraft and they opened up the crowd barriers and the huge crowd rushed to the steps. And over the tannoy, would Sir Bernard remain seated while the other passengers disembark? And this guy looked at me and says, "Who's that?" I said, "That's me." And I was so embarrassed.
Did you soon get used to it though? Because I mean that continued for some time.
Oh yes, yeah. They know how to do promotions over there. And the program director came running up the steps doing a live broadcast of my arrival, and then he pointed up in the sky. There was a small airplane towing a banner, and the banner says, "Welcome to Knoxville, Sir Bernie, baby."
And didn't they even have a little sports car waiting on the tarmac for
Yes.
you? And there was sort of like the tarmac was lined with people with placards and all kinds
Yeah.
of things, wasn't it?
They gave me the first TR6 to be imported into the USA with my name painted along the side.
Flipping heck, you really know you've arrived then,
Yes,
don't you, Bernie?
yeah.
Tell us about your next piece of music, because it's quite a fitting piece. This is an Elvis track.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I first heard this track just before leaving the Isle of Man. Daffy Donallan, he was so supportive. He was a great guy. Dedicated this song to me and said that our own Bernie Quayle is off to America, and he played this song and he told me to listen to the words. They would mean a lot, and they certainly did.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of rain, for purple mountains, majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with broad from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of rain, for purple mountains, majesty above the fruiting plains. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and He crowned thy good with brotherhood of sea to shining sun. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Elvis Presley, America, Bernie Quayle's second music choice this afternoon in this Conister Rock special.
And you being in the States led to you meeting some very interesting people. And some of the names that you've told me over the years of the famous bods, whether it's musical or actors that you've worked with or met, just give us a few of those names.
I'll tell you an interesting story. One I'd introduced in concert, and afterwards met up with them again at a club in Knoxville, was Percy Sledge. Remember Percy Sledge?
Yes, yeah.
When a Man Loves a Woman. And his entourage was there, and he had his own photographer. And he says, "Come, we'll have a photograph taken." And he put his arm around my waist, and he was patting me. "Man, don't you carry a piece?" I said, "A piece of what?" And he lifted his trouser leg up, and there was a revolver strapped to his ankle. He said, "A man in your business, you've got to have a piece." I said, "No, I wouldn't want one." But met so many different people there.
That must have been quite a dramatic change. Somebody from the Isle of Man, a young guy from the Isle of Man going off and being dropped into those sort of situations.
Yes. I at times had to pinch myself. I couldn't believe what was happening. I remember saying to poems like two different people. There's me, Bernie Quayle, and the image they created, Sir Bernard. And, it was a fascinating time, really was.
We're talking more to you in just a moment, Bernie, but you're listening to Women Today on Manx Radio, 27 minutes to 3 now.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Women Today.
Let me give you an example of what we were doing. I had this demo tape from Peppertanna, and Chris had tried to persuade me to sing where normally the jingle company would come in with the singers. This is what it sounded like.
This is Manx Radio in Douglas.
Well, as you can imagine, we didn't use that one.
I can't think why, Bernie. Just explain what was going on there to us.
As I mentioned, Chris was Chris Krukall, a local boy who made good in Canada under the name of Chris Paulson. But Manx Radio didn't have its own jingle package, and so we had written to all the jingle companies asking for demo tapes that Chris and I carefully edited and made our own jingles. That was a dreadful example you just heard there now. Some are very good.
I'm not going to lie, Bernie, I don't think that was the best, no.
Well, just briefly, one morning I was doing the breakfast show, and first gentleman came through the door, an American. He said, I was listening to your station on the way from the airport. He says, mighty fine radio station. Very interesting jingles you're playing. I said, oh yes, and I was demonstrating how he was a rep for Peppertanna, the jingle company. He had us over a barrel. So that was how we had to buy our first jingle package.
Well, Bernie Quayle, we have been hearing some of your tales in America, and I'm sure there are many, many more. I just wonder why, when you have that level of stardom, you have that adoration that you had over there, what brings somebody who's experiencing all that back here to the Isle of Man? Why did he come back?
I was homesick. As simple as that. I missed my mum and dad. They were getting on in years, and I didn't want to miss the last years together. And I mean, I was fed up with all the ballyhoo that went with the name I had at the time. I just wanted to be home, just be me, Bernie.
But there was no doubt that you wanted to be back here at Manx Radio.
Yes.
How did that come about then?
Oh no, I didn't. That was months after I arrived back home. I can't remember how it came about now. But anyway, I must have been on the island for 3 or 4 months before I started back at Manx Radio. And I was delighted to run the first late show that in the format that I wanted to do it in.
And the thing with radio, and I don't know whether it is exactly the same nowadays, really, because of the way that everything has changed. But certainly when you were doing the late show, first of all, here on Manx Radio, you were a friend to so many people. I mean, people tuned in to hear you. They felt that you were really talking to them. And that's a huge power of radio, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. It's the music is important, but it's having a friend on the other side of the radio. At times it was quite awesome, the letters I would get, not emails but letters, how much it meant to them.
We've had an email from David Quirk who says it's great to hear Bernie back on the radio. Can you ask him, does he remember Marge Jockin and the fun he had talking to her on the radio?
Oh, God. Dear Marge, yes. She was the bane of the talk shows. And one afternoon, she invited me out to tea. And I went to tea at Marge Jockin's house. And we got on like a house on fire. We really did. A lovely lady, really.
And you also had other famous friends. We've just got a clip here of Barbara Gibb. Let's just play that and then we'll talk a little bit about your association with the Bee Gees.
So it's no wonder that your sons have got this love for the old music.
I think so, yes. I think. Oh, yes, they all. Even Andy, as young as he was, loved all the old stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
He and Barry used to sing all the old songs from the war, and I'd never taught them.
My goodness.
You remember the harmonies on Alexander's?
Oh yeah.
So if I was to choose,
I did the high.
Mama, be the top one.
Remember the words.
Come on in here, come on in here, Alexander's ragtime band. Come on in here, come on in here, it's the best band in the land. Well, he could play a bugle call like you never heard before. That's about as far as you're going to get. Put that out. Cut it out.
And it was a very strong friendship you had with that family.
Yeah, the nice thing is their personal manager, Dick Ashby, said that in all the interviews he's sat in with them, he's never ever heard them open up as much as they did with me. I said, because we're all Manx, you see.
And that was the pivotal role you played, really, in coaxing them to really acknowledge their Manx heritage.
Yeah, well, this started, it was a TV show, and they said they've returned from Australia to their home in Manchester, where the boys originally came from. And so I, as they were touring in Britain at the time, I managed to track down their personal manager, and I said, I'd like to do an interview and see if I can get them to tell the truth as to where they came from. And he gave me Barry's telephone number, and Barry said, I would be delighted. And so I did a series of interviews with the boys where they openly acknowledged their homes in the Isle of Man, where they were born.
And you actually went out to the States to do that, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. Fortunately, they paid for it.
And again, something else, which I know must be an extremely proud thing for you to have been involved in, is that recording of Ellen Vannon.
Yeah, Robin was looking for a place to buy on the island, and I was driving him around, and there was a choral version of Ellen Vannon being played on the radio. He said, I love that melody. He said, could you get me the music? And I said, yes. Sent him the music with the words. And then a few weeks later he called me and he said, take a listen to this. And I got goosebumps. He said, do you think we could release that? I said, oh God, if you release that, at least everybody in the Isle of Man would buy it.
And then they did the big concert at Wembley, and didn't they have Manx flags and
That's
footage
right,
of
yes.
the Isle of Man at the concert in Wembley?
Yeah. David Cretney, I arranged for David to be there to present them with Manx flags. And David was over the moon too. Had some photographs taken with the boys. But it was a very proud moment there in Wembley Stadium.
Well, Bernie Quayle, let's talk about your next piece of music that you've chosen. This is Irish Eyes Are Smiling. Why have you chosen that?
Oh, it's for me, Mum. God rest her soul.
When Irish eyes are smiling, sure 'tis like a morning spring in the lilt of Irish laughter. You can hear the angels sing when Irish hearts are happy. All the world seems bright and gay, and when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they steal your heart away. heart away.
Bing Crosby, Irish Eyes Are Smiling, and that was for your mum, Bernie Quayle.
Yes, it was. My mum, God bless her, she was from Ireland, and I'd been at Manx Radio just a couple of weeks, just basically doing odd jobs. And the first time I was to do a live program, it was in the afternoon. I was home for lunch. We lived very close to the station then. It was on the promenade. And I was terrified. And Mum said, just relax. When you're sitting in front of the microphone, just picture me on the other side and talk to me. And that's all I could see.
You're listening to Women Today here on Manx Radio, a Conister Rock special this afternoon with Bernie Quayle. We'll be back just after this.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Women Today.
It is 11 minutes to 3, and after 3 o'clock, it's Alex in the afternoon, being looked after this afternoon by Ben Hartley, because Alex has jetted off to, I'd say, warmer climes, but Blackpool.
It's probably just as foggy there as it is here, I think. Yeah. So, yes, but he's there, so I'm here, and lots on the programme today, 2 for Tuesday with Domino's Pizza, so we're hopeful there might be a little delivery a bit later, and we've got the challenge as well. Now, Alex has been doing these kind of riddles, I suppose. I would never have got the one that he set today, because I know we're going to come on to similar things shortly, aren't we? And I'm no good at those at all. But we'll see if you are a little bit later. And Gogglebox Guru today, it's a show you'll know, but will you know the theme? You know, it's one of those. You know what I'm like for these. So, yeah, it's a show you'll definitely know.
One of your favourites, Ben.
Do you know, it's not right up there. I did view it, but not avidly like I have done with various other programmes. But yeah, we'll see how you go with that. And lots of good music and plenty more, all coming up after 3.
Thank you very much. Ben Hartley with you after 3 o'clock. But we have been talking to Bernie Quayle this afternoon and a Conister Rock special as part of our celebration for American Independence Day today and Tynwald Day tomorrow. Roy Kay's been in touch to say, Bernie, so lovely to have you back on the radio. And Ben was just talking about riddles there, and something you're very famous for is the odd brain teaser. How did they all come about, first of all?
Well, I wanted to run a little competition on a daily basis, and I enjoyed brain teasers. And so I started doing some research, finding them from all kinds of areas around the world. And I had a brain teaser every day. And I had to request, you ought to put those into a book. And I eventually did. And thanks to the man in printing, printed a book of Bernie's brain teasers, and it raised over £1,000 for Manx children in need. I was so pleased with that.
Had a very interesting picture of you on the cover. It was obviously a cartoon drawing, I should say. But we've got a little bit of news about the brain teaser, Christy.
We have, because we did invite Bernie to come back in a couple of weeks ago, and we have recorded some brain teasers, haven't we, Bernie?
So, yes.
Yeah, so we will be restarting the brain teasers as part of Women Today in the coming weeks. So I'm very excited about that. Bernie's voice will be back on air doing some brain teasers for us.
Women Today, reintroducing the brain teaser. Basically, we just want all your listeners from around the world, actually.
Yeah.
That's the only reason we're doing it. But currently, something you are quite interested in, Bernie, is the cycling. I'm assuming you're enjoying the Tour de France at the moment. But again, you've got quite a history in your family with regard to that, because your granddad was instrumental in cycling over here.
No, my father.
My granddad, that's why I confused
me.
Oh,
you did confuse me. You did confuse me.
My father and his brother, Leo Quayle, there was no cycling club on the island at this time, and my father had been appointed because running a guest house, a boarding house, they applied to the CTC, the Cyclist Touring Club of Great Britain, to get a plaque outside the house to attract cyclists looking for accommodation. And one of them was a guy from Bolton who said he couldn't believe there was no cycling club here on the island, and encouraged Dad and Leo to do something about it. And he gave them a lot of help and cooperation from Bolton. And so they were the two that actually started Manx. Well, it was then called Viking Wheelers. And when they registered with the CTC, they were told they can't call it Viking Wheelers. It has to be, there was already one in Scotland. So they put the prefix of Manx, and that was all right.
And you also had a very artistic grandfather, speaking of grandfathers, didn't you?
Oh, grandfather, E.C. Quayle, how he was a prolific painter. You'll see paintings, mostly seascapes, of his all around the island and homes. And I was fortunate to have known him briefly. He died in 48, I think it was. But he had a studio above the basket weaver's shop on the quay in Douglas. And I remember going down with a belly can of soup and some bread from my mum for him. He was working away. And I was just in awe of this chap, just his appearance, his long white hair. And, he did a little thing. He says, do a squiggle on a piece of paper and I'll make something of it. And I did what looked like an elongated letter S, and he turned it into a naked lady.
Bernie, it has just been wonderful having you with us on the programme this afternoon. And that's not just us talking. We obviously have had so many texts and emails from people saying how lovely it is to hear you back on the radio here. We are going to be reintroducing the brain teasers, as we say, in a couple of weeks. There are so many stories we haven't talked about. Mike Halewood, you had some interesting tales with him.
Oh, yes, yeah.
We've got another message from Karen saying, great show, such a lovely, lovely man. There are so many stories, aren't there, Christy?
There are. And, he's been so humble about it because having that sort of family link with Bernie here, over the years, I've heard so many things that he's talked about, especially with regards to America and all the different people that he met. And I was just looking, there's been an announcement of a Tom Jones concert at the Proms later this year, and he's going to do a special tribute to Stax with people like Sam and Dave, and weren't you sort of hanging around with them? And with the Drifters, and sort of going off to try and find Johnny Cash and interviewing, ending up with Roy Orbison, and all these different stories he's got are just incredible. So he's been very humble about it today, I have to say.
You certainly have, Bernie. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and sharing some of your musical memories with us this afternoon. We're going to be hearing your final piece of music in just a moment, but if you've missed any of today's programme, you can listen again online at manxradio.com for the next 7 days, and there's also the Women Today blog, which will be on manxradio.com as well. But tell us about the final piece of music that you have chosen, Bernie.
Well, it's a piece that Paul McCartney has done that I feel is an inspiration, and I really do wish for the content of this song to become a reality. It's called The Pipes of Peace.
Bernie Quayle, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Looking forward to the brain teasers. Stay tuned to Women Today for more information about that. We won't be back tomorrow, back on Thursday. Hope you can join us then.
I light a candle to our love. In love our problems disappear. But all in all we soon discover that one and one is all we long to hear. All around the world, little children being born to the world. Got to give them all we can till the war is won. Then will the work be done? Help them to learn songs of joy instead of burn, baby, burn. Let us show them how to play the pipes of peace. Play the pipes of peace. Help me to learn songs of joy instead of burn, baby, burn. Won't you show me how to play the pipes of peace? Play the pipes of peace. What do you say? Will the human race be run in a day? Or will someone save this planet we're playing on?
Women Today.